Hey there! Happy Friday to you. How are you doing? How are you living on this fine Friday in April? I hope that you are fabulous. It's Dr. Andrea here. If you're tuning in for the first time live or on the replay, I am excited to connect with you. I come on live each week to share a little bit of love and positivity with the world to keep us all moving and grooving on our path to fabulousness or on your path to enlightenment, depending on your aspiration. So I'd love to see who is here with us. What's up, Wenda? Hello, Lena, Kirk. Good to see you as well. I'm always excited to connect with my peeps. And Wenda, where are you chiming in from today? I don't know where you're located. I do know that the lovely Lena, who is one of the authors in Time to Rise, is normally in Denmark, but let us know where you are coming from. And salut Yasmine, et bienvenue. Glad to have you here. And thank you, Erin. I am feeling the springtime energy and brightening up my whole vibe. Finally, here in the United States, where I am right now, we've got some spring feeling weather, and it's nice. What up, Trevor? Good to see you. You're out in California right now. Where are you, Trevor? And Wenda, you're in Essex, in England. Fabulous. I love it. I love this global connection that we have. Yasmine aussi, you're in London. Wonderful. Naman, good to see you here. Glad to have you in the house, as we say. Good to have all of our peeps here. So today, being a Friday, it means that we're getting ready for the weekend. I don't know what you have planned, but I'm going to be heading up to Northern Virginia for a celebration with Sister Dr. Jenna from the Meditation Museums. They are celebrating the 5-year anniversary of her show, which is the America Meditating radio show. So I will be in Northern Virginia at the Meditation Museum. But don't worry, if you can't travel there, you can actually watch us live on Facebook. So I will share on this page, but you can also visit the Meditation Museum page where we will be live. So right now I am in Richmond, Virginia, and hanging out with my daughter, who's doing some cool stuff here as we've just been traveling the world, mainly in France. And yeah, so that's where I'm at today. So today is a follow-up and a follow-on from some of our previous conversations. Earlier, I was talking about the law of karma, which I know is a sticky one for a lot of people. And we were talking about last time here live, this phrase that I pretty much live by when I want to check in on how am I feeling and who's ruling my feelings. I find that if we are ruled by our outside circumstances, like you don't feel good unless everything's clean. Okay, that's a little my perfectionism. I like everything to be neat and tidy. Or you don't feel good unless you have a certain amount of money in the bank. Or you don't feel good if someone else is in a bad mood. All that codependent stuff with relationships and that OCD, it can make us feel down. And when we find that we are getting knocked around by life, because life happens, or when we feel like we're getting knocked by somebody in our community or our tribe or our family who's done us wrong, it can hurt. And so some of you have shared some of the challenges that you're going through. I got a couple of messages about folks that are dealing with depression. I know how that feels, having lived with depression for over 15 years and feeling lost in life. So I want to help us all really get some clarity on how we can make our life line up with our biggest dreams and our aspirations. And so one of the things that I have been talking a lot about is this idea that you are the co-creator of your life. And by co-creator, I generally think of our additional partner in creation as the divine. So you can look at it as being in cahoots with the universe, or you can do partnership. I had a great conversation with somebody who hosts a podcast that I'll be sharing with you soon about this whole concept of partnership. Like, what happens when we come together in alignment? We can make magic together. But if you're alone, if you're not in a relationship or a marriage or a partnership, then it really rests with you, doesn't it? To make this life exciting or just livable for some of you. So I wonder if anyone wants to chime in on this idea about your aspirations. Because when life gets tough, when we start feeling low, I wonder, where do we go to dial back up that energy? And of course, all of you know that I believe, or maybe you don't know, if you're new to my world, I should let you know that I don't believe in victim mentality. I believe that we can be accountable for our lives. And I shared a lot about my story in this book, I Love You, Me. And a lot of people who saw my TED Talk or read just the first little bit of the book, they're like, whoa, you share a lot about what happened in your childhood and what made you get on this roller coaster of seeking approval and then falling down into depression and not feeling good enough and not feeling worthy of love or success or whatever. And somebody actually said, I feel bad for your parents. And I'm like, okay, well, first of all, you didn't watch the whole TED Talk or read the whole book, or even just in the acknowledgments. I acknowledge my parents. I know that in my past, I did blame my childhood or the experiences I had growing up in a divorced family, blah, 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 blah. But where I stand now is in my journey, personally, as a spiritual being, I know that I am accountable. I am responsible. And so this was a tricky subject for a lot of people, especially as it pertains to karma. And a lot of people didn't want to hear that, or I should say, a lot of people who first kind of learned about karma, but more in the vein of the law of attraction, they got really insulted when they heard that you are responsible for what shows up in your life. And I shared this a couple of videos ago, or a couple of rants ago. We are witnessing the fruit. Our lives are bearing fruit. What you see in your life is as a result of every karmic seed you have sown in the past. And while that hurts for some people because they're thinking, wait, if I have a disease process, if I have pain, if someone has done me wrong, are you going to tell me that I caused that? So, whether we get into this whole conversation again on karma, you guys will let me know. But what I want to say is this. No matter where you think that past influence came, whether it came from a past life or it came earlier in this life, there were things, there were causes and conditions that caused you to have this fruit that has ripened in your life right now. And we can't blame the weather for, flooding our crops. We can't blame the sun for burning up our crops. If we planted those seeds and then the causes and conditions cause it to go awry, what can we do? You can't smack the sun upside the head and be like, look what you did. Okay, you could try that, but it won't get you far. Instead, we have to take responsibility, which means we choose how to respond and how to act. Is this making sense, or am I Debbie Downer on a Friday? Oh, thank you. Margareta says she completely agrees. And you say that you watch one of my rants when you're feeling low. Well, good. I want to be a fount of positivity, but I know that that's not always possible. And you can also tune into music that touches you at your core and let loose of what's making you feel down or low. I love it. And Trevor says, you're darn right. Whatever I put out, it's going to come back. And that's really what the law of karma is all about. Okay, so what I want to get onto now is something that I shared in the book. And that is this idea of accountability. So if you're not familiar with this book, I Love You Me, I actually share a 5-step process for creating what I call a durable foundation of real self-love. And it's predicated upon you identifying your real self, like reclaiming your authentic self based on your spiritual DNA. Like, who did you and the divine conspire yourself to be? You know, if you are a spiritual being or an individuated drop of God consciousness, a soul, you came here to live and express certain qualities. And even though we as humans will try to mimic what other people are doing, like we check out what is everyone else doing, we compare, and then we try to fit in. In my case, I fit into so many different boxes. I tried to be the perfect little chameleon to always fit in, or to, tick off those little boxes for acceptance and validation. But what that caused is it caused me to deny some of my true divine potential. And it caused me to second guess myself and my true desires. It caused me to doubt that my intuition was actually leading me where I should go, or where I could go to experience what I wanted. And it got me off track. And getting off track from your life path and your purpose and denying who you really are can lead to so much pain, frustration, illness, and dis-ease. In my case, that manifested as depression and anxiety. That feeling of never being good enough, that feeling of always feeling like, because I was trying to fit into someone else's mold, which is inauthentic, I never felt good enough. So that whole feeling of imposter syndrome, like, oh God, they're going to find out. Well, of course, you feel like a fraud and a fake when you're not living your truth. And so this 5-step path of leading you back to your true home, which is finding out who you really are at your core and then living it forward, we go through these 5 steps of awareness, so becoming aware of your spiritual DNA and who you really are at your core. Then we go into acceptance, which means we get to reclaim all of what may have been lost or hidden or pushed into the shadow. In that process, we get to forgive. Yeah. You didn't think I was going to leave that out, did you? Because that's where we were last week, or in this last session, we were talking about forgiveness. And what's up, Hilda? Where are you right now? Are you in Denmark? You say you were angry at your mother, but thanks to your change in life, where you nearly died, you found love instead. That is beautiful. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about your story, because I don't think you've shared all of that with me. And that is sometimes what we need to do. We experience great loss and pain that wakes us up, that makes us recognize that we're all in this together. We are all on this journey towards enlightenment or whatever together, including our parents. I was talking to my brother recently, and I know personally that the thoughts that I had about how my mother and my father parented me, us, I had a lot of judgment. I had a lot of anger. Of course, once I had my daughter, I was like, parenting's hard. We do the best that we can with what we're working with. And I had so much more compassion and forgiveness toward my mother. And I have a lot more compassion for myself, because this stuff is hard. I'm sorry. I've told people before, you could put me in the operating room. I could be there doing surgery on my feet in the blood. I could do that for 8 hours straight. And that's easier to me than parenting. Well, it depends on the phase of life. Like those first few years with babies when they can't talk and you're just like, what is it you want? I've fed you, I've changed you, I've rocked you, and you're still crying. That was challenging for me. Anyway, I digress. So we get through this phase of acceptance. And through that acceptance phase, we work forgiveness. So in my last session, we recited together the forgiveness meditation, where you can offer forgiveness for somebody else, whether they're living or passed on, and forgiveness for yourself, which helps you kind of clean the slate, clean away that negative energy. Don't carry those grudges and those anger points and that desire for revenge forward. Because as we said, that's like drinking poison, hoping the other person's going to die. And that poison is slowly killing us from the inside. And so after we get through the acceptance phase, we move into phase 3, which is accountability. And that's where I want to sort of chop this up with you today, because accountability sounds heavy to some people. They feel like, okay, it was nice when I could blame my parents or blame the economy or blame the president. But when I have to take responsibility, to some people, that's kind of heavy. But I want you to look at it from a different perspective. So I want us to explore and examine our aspirations. So I mentioned in my description here that I don't like goal setting, simply because many times we don't actually have a plan to achieve them. We don't even have a way to track our progress. And sometimes we set goals that are based on external motivations or drivers. And instead, what I'm inviting you to do is look at your aspirations, which, okay, maybe it's just a psychological flip, but I kind of realized that as I was talking about forgiveness and compassion, these are sort of my reflex values, if you will. They're what I've built my life on, my company on. It's how I raise my daughter. It's how I live. But I wonder about you. You know, what are those values? Part of what I'm asking people to do in the Real Self-Love movement and through my books and in my workshops is to literally write down, what are your values? What are the principles that you live by? And then rather than creating goals, I would invite you to instead talk about your aspirations. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't believe in making realistic goals to achieve stuff. I mean, you don't become an overachiever and then turn it all off. I still have that in me. But instead, what I want us to examine is how can we align our aspirations with more of our internal desires, our motivations, our values. So I want to know if this makes sense to you, and if this is something that you're willing to play along, then I'd like for us to explore how you can become accountable. Because what I've noticed in many of our cases, we're alone on these paths. Like especially when you decide to liberate your authentic self and live as your authentic self. Many of us are having to step out on a path that hasn't been trodden before. We don't have necessarily a bunch of footprints to follow after. There's no roadmap, and we have to chart that territory on our own. And in doing that, sometimes we're leaving people behind. There are other people that may have been on that path with us, but now we both have different aspirations and goals in life, and we have to part ways. So it can feel very isolating, and we can feel very much alone. I don't know, at least I did for a while. I'm not going to project on you. Maybe you're good. But one of the reasons why I do these lives and why I'm getting together this community is so that we can support each other and not feel so alone. We can talk about our progress and where we get slipped up and hit up and all that sort of stuff. And yes, Margareta, it is about this outside the box kind of journey. And yes, Hilda, sometimes we have to leave these people behind because they are not adding fuel to our mission in life. Instead, they're actually kind of either holding us in place or they could even be pulling us backward. So when we talk about being accountable, it means that in this present moment, I recognize that no matter what the past situations were, I'm responsible for my life going forward. If we believe this idea that you reap what you sow, then I need to sow seeds right now for the kind of future that I want to live into. And so with our aspirations, I aspire to live with full compassion, to be flexible in the moment when things go wrong instead of snapping and getting irritable. I aspire to be able to forgive and just send blessings to people even when they do me wrong, so that I'm not messing with my own karma. Because that's part of my spiritual path. So I'd love to hear from you. Type in, what are you aspiring to? You know, it's more than a goal, it's a state of being. What is the being that you are aspiring to express as your best self, we might say, as your authentic self? I'd love to hear from you, because then I'd love for us to explore this part of the book where we talk about accountability and inspired action. So I kind of jumped ahead because in my last video, I talked about inspired action, which is really step 4 of the cornerstone process. But before that is accountability. And so I wonder if you guys want to type that in, tell me what you're aspiring to do. And then I want to talk to you about accountability and how you can get there. One of the things that I'm currently doing with my friend, Derry Llewellyn-Davies, who is the global Grand Slam adventurer. Derry is this guy from Wales who built this wonderful company called Business Growth International, where he created strategy on a page. So for the entrepreneurs out there, you can literally put your entire business strategy, from your vision, your purpose, all of your key performance indicators, how the marketing is going to work and all of that, and your sales strategy, all onto a single page. Brilliant. And one of the other things that he's created is something called the Diamond Life Design. And it's a framework for getting clear on your vision, your values, and the core feelings that you really want to experience in life. And these ultimate feelings are really what can drive us in life. And I found that for me personally, they are what drive me. And I talk about Diamond Life Design in this book and how you can use it to create a life that you love. And that includes getting free from depression, you know, finding your sense of purpose in life and really making your life line up to the vision. So I'd love to hear from you. Ashara says, what's the difference between inspiration and aspiration? So from our last video, Ashara, do you remember me talking about the root or the etymologic derivation of this word inspiration? So if you trace it back to the Latin, it is in spiritus. And this word in spiritus or inspiration really ties back to being filled with the Spirit. And, you know, on a religious context, we're talking the Holy Spirit. And so when you are inspired, it means you've got this divine spark that is giving you the juice or the impetus to take action. And so inspiration is about being filled up with a dream, a desire, and the energy to get it done. Whereas aspiration, something that you aspire to, is more like setting a goal. It's more like I aspire to be a wealthy philanthropist. It's like goal setting. Whereas inspiration, like I'm inspired by my compassion, or I'm inspired to take a certain action. Whereas my aspiration is more about the endpoint or a goal or a state of being. Does that help, Ashara? Have I made it clearer? Y'all, help me out. if I have not made that clear. So let's see. So Yasmin, you say your vision is to share your miracle in my next book, and you've yet to make it happen. Well, you have time. For those of you that don't know, one of the next group books that I'm publishing at Make Your Mark Global is a book about magic, miracles, and manifestation. So if you've had something miraculous that's happened in your life, then I really would love it if you would share your personal story, and you might be published in my next book. So Time to Rise, this book here, that's a collection of 29 authors from around the world who've shared personal stories about how they've risen up. And I love publishing these kind of books. I've shared my own stories in books like these because they do provide inspiration. They give us that feeling that we can rise up and we can achieve. And I want people to know that more than anything, you are connected to a divine source for miracles. So even though I'm talking about aspiration and creating goals, and we're going to talk about accountability and how you can make sure you get to your goal point, I'm not saying that I want you to rely on your own mind alone or your own grit and determination. Now, those are important, of course, because I don't want you to give up and just sit there like, oh, I'm going to just wish for. But I want you to know that you are connected to a source that can help you, to divine beings. So Yasmin, I would love it. For those of you who are curious, don't do it now. Stick with me. But you can go to Magic and Miracles book. Is it Miracles and Magic? Oh my goodness. Now I've forgotten. There's a website. Usually I just send people to a special link. Oh my goodness. Is it Magic and Miracles? Come on, somebody help a sister out. Don't you know? Anyway, if you go to Magic and Miracles book.com, you can get all the details for this new book, and definitely pass that on to anyone who might need it. Okay, I said share this email. I just copied my email. If you haven't signed up yet for my e-newsletter, you should, so that you get all of my announcements and videos and helpful tips. So you go to magicandmiraclesbook.com, and you can click there, watch a little video, click there, and you can submit your story idea. And this is an author-funded book, meaning each author contributes to the publishing cost, but it's super low. And if you happen to be a coach or a healer and you're trying to use this in your business, we have so many little perks and bonuses that will make it worth it. Okay, so that's enough about that. So Hilda, you can get that information there. So Ashara, I'm glad to know that that made sense, the difference between aspiration and inspiration. Love it. And so Hilda, you're saying that calm, faith, love, and nature is your freedom. So is that your aspiration, to really live by that? Is that what you mean by that? If that's what you mean, I love it. I love it. I love it. So then let's talk about, what do you do to keep yourself accountable? If you've got this aspiration to, again, it sounds like a goal, like I want to move to Greece, or I want to launch a new company, or I want to raise my family with more love and compassion. I want to put away the old way and embrace something new. How do you keep yourself accountable to that? Because for some of these things, if you were starting a business, you could go online, you could download the steps that it takes to launch a business, and you could pretty much check them off. And that can keep you accountable. Checklists help us stay accountable. And if you put a date that you want to get something done by, that's great, because then that's sort of that goal setting thing. But how do you keep yourself accountable if you're the only one that's counting on it? Like if it's your spiritual path, how do you stay accountable? That's what I want to talk about. Because for those on a spiritual path, or even practicing a certain religion, you might be accountable to your higher power or God. Maybe you believe that God is judging you. And so you've got to be held accountable to a godly standard. And I just want to throw something out for you, because I found that if you didn't have something in place, you could easily slip off. And then nobody would care, because if it's a personal goal or a spiritual goal, hey, nobody's going to be looking at you saying, oh my goodness, you haven't made it. So I'm trying to find this page. Sorry, I know I should have looked at this, but it's been one of those mornings. I'm looking for the accountability stuff. So here's what I want you to know is, if you know that, let's say this idea about compassion is part of your accountability practice, then I want you to be able to ask yourself, for example, what have I done today? Or maybe you do this, maybe you have a weekly accountability practice. So in other words, I'm telling you, I want you to have an accountability practice. And that means that once a week, or it could be once a day, you check in to find out, am I living the way that I said I would? Am I doing my best to achieve whatever change that I wanted to affect in my life or in my world? That's what I want you to explore as a possibility. And does that make sense to people? Let me know if that makes sense. Thank you, Hilda, for being here, and thank you for living your aspiration, because that is truly what it's all about. So I want to know if this makes sense. Is anyone following me, or have I completely lost you? Which is possible. It could happen. Thank you, Trevor. Trevor says, yes, it makes sense. All right, so Trevor, what is your accountability practice? Do you do anything like what I've talked about? Some of you have heard me say that I want you to be accountable to your higher self. And for most of us, that means that we really have to dial in again to, well, who is my higher self? On a spiritual level, if we could truly tune in and say, who am I really? This is beyond the ego. This is not who you are on paper, like your resume. This is who are you? You know, if your spirit or your higher self were really the driving force for what you're up to in the world, then that's what we're talking about ultimately. And so now I want you to be able to say that you can be confident that with your authentic self in the driver's seat, that you can actually take responsibility to reclaim your authority for your life, that you become the author of your heroic life story. And yes, Naman says, I am a pure soul. And so if you're a pure soul, and yet we live in this 3D world that makes us feel like we're covered with, you know, what Sister Dr. Jenna says, algae, and the ALGAE stands for anger, lust, greed, attachment, ego. So if we can strip away those things and say, if I am truly a pure soul, full of love, then I want to live by that. That might be my aspiration. And so at the end of a day or at the end of a week, we invite you to create some sort of accountability ritual, because it's not necessarily going to be anybody else checking in on you. And if we can check in and say, you know, how have I done today? How have I done this week? You know when you're slipping, you know. So if you wrote down your aspiration or your intention to live as your authentic self, then you're making this commitment to yourself. And so, you know, you might say, My happiness depends on me. I claim my right to joy, success, and love. I am becoming immune to what those haters or critics might say. And all of these sort of declarations are really the positive statements that are part of our Real Self-Love Manifesto, which you can download for free if you go to realself.love. And if you really start to think about that future self, like, again, if we think that the seeds that I sow today, which could be the seeds I'm sowing in my own head and my own heart, not just the actions, but the thoughts and the intentions behind what I want to create, the seeds that I plant today are going to manifest and bear fruit tomorrow and the tomorrows and the tomorrows. And so if you take accountability for the life that you will live from this day forward and create a future vision of your most authentic and empowered self, then that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. And so writing down that future vision, I actually record my future visions onto my smartphone or onto my computer so that I can listen to them again and again. And again, if you want to hear one of the guided audios for how you can share, how you can record your own future vision, I've got a guided meditation that will help you get through that. I've just posted it in the comments. And so, Margareta, you say, where do I want to be and what can I do to reach that? And so, Margareta, how often would you ask yourself that? And where am I today? Would you ask yourself on a daily basis? Would you check in on a weekly basis? You know, that's what we're asking. It's like finding a way to become really conscious about this authentic self authenticity, like, and accountability. And so, you know, it's easy to think of from the standpoint of a boss, right? For those of you who've ever been employed and you have like a performance review to see if you're going to get a raise or a bonus at the end of the year. Well, if you were an employee and the boss needed to evaluate your performance, we would first need to know what the standards are, right? Like, what are the standards that they're going to be evaluating you? Just like if you were in school, like, what do I need to know so that I can determine how I'm going to study so that I meet those? So by us listing out our aspirations, those are the standards that we say we're going to live by. And so if we consider that I am my own boss, each week I get to evaluate myself to determine how well I'm living in accordance with my values. And so I like to do this, you know, in a journal. So I really just kind of lay it all out there and I ask myself a few questions. Did I do my best to express my authentic self? Because for me, that was a big thing, 10, 15 years ago. I was trying to fit in. It's like, no, I want to honor myself. Did I do my best to express my authentic self, or was I hiding on the sidelines? Or was I not expressing my opinions or not being actively involved? And then I can rate myself. If you like, scales on a scale of 0 to 10, how would I rate myself on how well I was expressing my authentic self? Another question to ask, was I focused on my future vision and these growth areas that I want to work on? Was I focused? How focused was I on a scale of 0 to 10? Or was I distracted? Or was I hung up in other people's stuff? Trying to get all up in someone else's groove instead of staying in my own lane. So Margareta says daily would become more like a job or a must. So once every 2 to 3 days to check in. I like that. Because here's the thing. This idea, for those of you that are curious about this diamond life, is anybody curious? Let me ask you. I know that you've been doing the diamond with us, Trevor, so you know this already. Has anyone else seen the diamond life design framework? Is anyone curious? I'm looking for it. So if you're not curious, just tell me no, and I won't even bother showing you. Anyone? Anyone interested? Anyone interested? Anyone interested? So I like to really put things into a visual context. I'm a visual learner. I don't know how many other visual people are out there like me, but I'm visual. That's how I roll. So, okay, you're interested. Thank you, Wenda. I will show you. I will show you the diamond because I think it's pretty cool. And I want to tell you a little bit more about how the diamond came into place. You're not going to be able to read it. Thank you, Dr. Juicy Jill. She says you highly recommend it. So here it is. I know you can't read this, so I'm going to just tell you a little bit about it. So one of the things that came up for dairy and how this inspiration came forward is based on when his father was literally on his deathbed. And his father said to him, "Son, I have so many regrets. There's so many things that I didn't do in life." And he felt like he was dying with his dreams inside of him, unlived. And, you know, Derry was in his, I guess, 20s at the time. And that really hit him to hear his own father saying that he was dying with regrets. And literally 2 days later, he passed away. And so at that point, Derry created what he calls this global grand slam adventure, where he decided, no, I'm not going to die with regret. I want to like scale the 7 highest peaks on the planet and, you know, do all these things. And so he literally has created this. But one of the things that drove him was a feeling of not wanting to die with regret. And so you can't see this on the diamond, unfortunately, but at the very top is feelings. And it's written about in the book. So you'll see the Diamond Life Design here. But you can also go to diamondlifedesign.com and you can watch a video where Derry and I talk through the diamond. And so in the Diamond Life Design system, we focus on the feelings, the ultimate feelings at the top that we want to experience in life. So it's our aspirational feelings. But it's also at the bottom of the diamond, and it's what are those feelings that I want to feel in this moment. Now, the way that I got to this place was also from a parent and also tied to regret, but it was a flip. My mother, who many of you know, she's still living. Unfortunately, now she has Alzheimer's. But one of the things that she said to me a few years ago was, it was profound. She said, you know, she was kind of having these moments where she could tell that her memory was going. And this happens a lot with dementia. There are times when a person kind of realizes, oh my God, I'm losing my memories. And it can fill them with all sorts of dread, depression, disappointment, despair, denial, a bunch of D's. So many of them will go into denial and they try to act like, no, I didn't forget that. I just, but in my mom's case, she got to a point where she literally could recognize it. And she recognized that, you know, her health was waning, her vision was going. And she said, you know, I'm happy with the way I've lived my life. I've traveled, I've loved, I've done what I wanted to do, and I have no regrets. And she was able to say, you know what? When I cuck up my toes and I meet my maker, I believe my maker will say, job well done. And that just hit me because it made me recognize, like, wow, we put off the living stuff or the doing or the adventures or the experiences. And we don't know how long we're going to live. We don't know what may come up. And so that idea of living with no regrets really, really impacted me a lot. And so when I had the opportunity to move to the south of France, I took it. Partly because my mom has lived in multiple countries and she's always instilled in us this sense of adventure and, you know, exploration in the world. But for me, there came a moment, this was probably, I don't know, a little less than 10 years ago, there came a moment where I started to look at my own life and I could feel regret. And hey, everybody has their own kind of things that you hate. I do not like the feeling of depression because that heavy energy can send me down a very dark rabbit hole where I have some really dark thoughts. I don't want to go back there again. I know now I have ways to get past it, but the other feeling that I really don't do well with is regret. That feeling is just so icky to me. And so what I noticed, and this is about over 10 years ago, is I started working with this coaching methodology and literally got certified as a coach. And one of the things that we do is we look through our past 12 months. So you look over your life, and you may do this on a weekly or monthly basis, and you literally write down your disappointments, the things that you didn't accomplish. And this is taking accountability to that next level. Now, the reason I'm focusing on the negative is because many of us are driven by pain. So you're either driven by pain or pleasure. We can either dangle something nice and you'll just come towards it, or we got to whip you with a stick. I don't like to experience a lot of pain. So for me, I don't want to experience regret. So at the top of that diamond, I list out what are the feelings I do want to feel. I want to feel a sense of flow. I want to feel a sense of abundance. I want to feel compassion and generosity towards everyone. And so as I make that my aspiration and what I want to experience, then if I look over my life over the last week or over the last 12 months, and I can write down the things that I'm disappointed with, about a decade ago, I recognized that there were steps that I could take to make sure that I reached those goals or lived those aspirations and didn't fall into regret. And so that's what this whole Diamond Life Design framework is really about. It's about getting clear on the feelings that you want to experience. What are the major areas of life that you want to enhance? What are the various roles that you're playing, and how does that play out? So if you'd like to check out, I'm going to share it here, diamondlifedesign.com. You can watch a free masterclass where Derry and I talk about it at length so that you can understand the framework. But it for us, this idea of being able to stay in aspiration mode where we're really focused on what do I want to experience in life and how am I going to get myself there. And so by having some sort of a practice where you can look and ask yourself, okay, was I consciously and boldly taking action toward my dreams? Or was I mindlessly watching, Netflix? Was I scrolling through social media? Or was I just doing busy work? So last session when we talked about being in action, we talked about inspired action. So not doing busy work for the sake of just appearing busy, but really staying true to, I want to have that inspiration. I want to have that divine connection so that any action I take is really about moving me forward on my path. It's really about getting the type of result that we ultimately want in life. And so this idea about being accountable is really about claiming responsibility for the choices you make and the way that your life is turning out. And so that's what I'm, inviting you to do so that you can start to architect a diamond life. And again, this is not about mimicking me or Derry, again, because Derry does some crazy stuff. I do some crazy stuff. Maybe not crazy to y'all, crazy to me, crazy to some of the people in my family. Thank you, Trevor. I know you've been working Diamond Life Design and you think it's awesome. And yes, Naman, as clear and strong as a diamond. And thank you, Lena. I'm glad that you see that it's a powerful way to live. So this idea is really based on my desire to see you succeed. And I find that if you are feeling lost, if you are feeling like you don't know what your life purpose is, this 5-step plan that's outlined in the book is really just meant to give you something to focus on and give you that sense of clarity. Because when you don't have clarity, you may find yourself kind of grasping for straws, just searching or looking for anything out there. And that can help sometimes, but it can also leave you feeling helpless and confused. And then again, it can lead us down that negative spiral of pessimism. And so I wanted to just invite you to explore this concept a little bit, and I'm happy to open up to any questions that you have around this idea of becoming accountable to your authentic self, or in the words of Taz Thornton, I've heard you describe it as your sovereign self. What's up, Taz? Good to see you here, birthday girl. I missed my opportunity to sing to you. I don't know, should I sing in English or French? Synchronicity, yet again, you've been talking about the clarity issue in a business talk. So yeah, we do. We need this sense of clarity. And while I love to be willing to be on the fly, because I do believe in this idea of flow, where we can rely on the divine to give us the answers, honey, I am still very, very much a list kind of person. And for those of you that know me, I got all my journals and color-coded things because I just like to have, I'm a visual person and I'm a kinesthetic person. I like to have clarity. I like to see things. And that's why Diamond Life Design works for me. I do have a bunch of different notebooks, and then I do voice record and I do doodle online, but then I love seeing it on the wall. Okay, that's a whole. So Trevor says, do it in French, and Taz says, patiently waits for a birthday song. Okay, so since Trevor spoke up and you didn't, Taz, I'm going to give it to you in French, okay? Joyeux anniversaire, mes vœux les plus sincères, que ces quelques fleurs, je t'apporte du bonheur, que l'année entière, tu sois douce et légère, et que l'an fini, nous soyons tous réunis, pour chanter en chœur, bon anniversaire. Happy birthday, Taz. Woohoo, yay. So there you go. Anyway, so Jill says, it is amazing when you do finally have clarity, how quickly the universe responds, like taking a drink from a fire hose on full blast. Whoa. Can you get knocked on your bum? Yes. Chocolate, ice cream, and hot tamales help. Yeah. So it is, you're welcome, Taz. Happy birthday, hun. One of our Real Self-Love leaders. Check her out. So yeah, I love what you brought up there, Jill, because I do believe in miracles. I do believe in our magical connection in this matrix of energy and information. I do believe that the divine hears our prayers. And it doesn't even have to be like some god in a long robe sitting on high on a cloudy throne. I mean that we are connected. And once you get clear on your values, and once you state and define this vision that you want to live into, the aspirations, if you can do that with conviction and faith, like you, Jill, I believe that the universe is going to line up. There will be new opportunities that come your way. There will be new synchronicities, or as we call them, synchro destinies that show up. A person or an introduction or, some message or money or something that comes to you. Like, we have that ability to manifest an amazing life. And I totally believe that we can tap into it and participate. It is a participatory universe that we live in. Taz says, yes, the universe does respond if we have clarity. Or we can choose to believe we just spot opportunities more when we're clear about our intention. Either way works. Absolutely, Taz. And the reason that either way works is because what we put our attention on, what you focus on is what you're going to start to see and get. And I mentioned this in one of my blog posts, that in the traditional Chinese medical system, we say that where attention goes, qi flows. Qi is that life force energy. And so if we were doing acupuncture, where qi flows, blood flows. So if you've ever had acupuncture and you see that the area starts to get red, it's not a bad thing. It means blood is bringing in more healing molecules. So that energy, so where we place our attention, we will, what you think upon, you bring upon. So what you think about, you bring about. So if we have that clarity, it's like when we start to say, oh, I want to look for a new car, and then you start to see that model of car everywhere. They've always been there. It's just that now that your attention has been tuned in, you are seeing it in your awareness more frequently. So I hope that this is making sense to everyone. Taz says, yes, indeedy. And Naman says, I think the help you're giving is serving a task from God. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that, Naman. I like to think so. I like to believe that what I'm doing is divinely inspired. That's part of my mission and my aspiration. So I want to end things here. I'm not going to go over an hour today unless you guys have some questions. But this idea that we can get clarity, claim what we are really about on this planet and what we want to live and accomplish is up to us. And by becoming accountable and having a regular check-in, it means that we can course correct. It means that, we can course correct. For those of you that would like some help on that, I have to just give a little plug here for the Real Self-Love movement, and the lovely Taz Thornton is one of our Real Self-Love leaders. And in fact, you can join us by visiting realself.love, and you can download the Real Self-Love Manifesto. You can start to connect with us. We also have a Facebook group where you can get support and inspiration from us on an ongoing basis. Yes, that's you, Taz. And in fact, Taz is actually going to be hosting a masterclass with me very, very soon, or I'm basically going to be sucking information out of her brain as she channels through the spirit. And I'm really excited about this, Taz. So thank you for saying yes. A lot of people in our tribe have been asking, how do we get that extra help? How do we get that extra clarity? How do we sometimes create a buffer zone or protection spiritually, like spiritual armor? How do we grab those tools so that on this life journey, when we encounter negative energy or people who are not really on the path or don't have our best interests at heart, how can we use some of these ancient wisdom tools? Whether that's tapping into spirit animals or shamanism. I'm excited that Taz is going to be helping us with that. So if you want information, make sure that you join the Real Self-Love movement. It's totally free. That's my mission. My mission is to provide what I am inspired to provide and connect you with some of the leaders, the teachers, these really kick-butt instructors who can help you on your journey. So it's totally free for you to join realself.love. And on Taz's Inspiration Tribe, she's sharing a lot more stuff online on Facebook, and you can join if you go to Taz Thornton. Is it .com or .co.uk? I'm sure it's .com. Go to TazThornton.com, and you can also sign up for her newsletters where she's sending out positive inspiration stuff. So there you have it. I am just thrilled to be connected with you. I'm thrilled that we have made it to Friday. I am thrilled that we have made it to spring and that the sun is shining. And at least over here in Virginia, we're feeling pretty good. So for those of you that have questions, feel free to send me a message. If there's something that you would like for me to share on this live platform, I am happy to do that. If there's experts you want me to interview, I'm happy to do that as well. So have a fabulous weekend. you can tune in this Sunday at 3 o'clock Eastern for the session that Sister Dr. Jenna from the Meditation Museum will be leading. That's 3 o'clock Eastern Time, noon in Cali, and 9 o'clock in Paris, 8 o'clock London time this Sunday. And, so Jill says we've got a new moon and the end of Mercury retrograde. That's right. This weekend, we get to go back into Mercury being direct. For those of you who've had challenges with communication or technology, hopefully that'll clean up for you. So happy Friday. Happy Friday to you, Ebony. I'm glad that we've given you something to meditate on. Let's focus on your aspirations. The reason I've asked some of you to share them is, even the good book says where two are gathered together and we agree together in the name of your highest ideal, then we can agree. You don't have to be alone in setting these aspirations. So just know that what you share here, this tribe, this community is dedicated to sharing the love and the light and to keeping us all in this bubble of inspiration. And we will be holding this highest vision of you as you share your inspiration and your aspirations with us. So I wish you a wonderful weekend, my friends. Just know that from here, I am sending you so much love and chi and good healing vibes so that you can continue to live the life that you really want to. And I want to remind you, you are a gift to the world. So share your presence with passion. Much love. Bye.